Some coins pass through countless hands without a second glance. They're spent, saved, dropped in jars, and forgotten. And then, every so often, one of those coins turns out to be something worth a closer look. Let's take a moment to focus on one of the most familiar coins in modern circulation, the Roosevelt dime. It's small, often overlooked, and most people don't think twice about it. But today's coin might make you reconsider that spare change sitting in your car console or kitchen drawer. Let's talk about the 2005 Roosevelt dime. At first glance, it looks like every other dime you've seen. It features the same design that's been in use for decades. Franklin D. Roosevelt, 32nd President of the United States, faces left on the obverse side. The word Liberty sits to the left of his profile, and the year, 2005, sits just beneath his neck. The small D mint mark, showing it was struck at the Denver Mint, is located just below the date. The reverse is just as familiar. It shows a torch in the center, flanked by an olive branch on one side and an oak branch on the other. Together, they represent liberty, peace, and strength, core values that have defined the United States across generations. So what makes the 2005 Roosevelt dime stand out? To begin with, it was produced in huge numbers. The Denver Mint struck over 1.4 billion of these dimes that year. That's a staggering amount, making it one of the most common dimes from the early 2000s. But here's the thing about coin collecting. Rarity isn't always about how many were made. Sometimes, it's about how many have survived in exceptional condition. Coins intended for everyday use, what collectors call business strikes, aren't always produced with perfection in mind. They're struck quickly, in large volumes, and are expected to enter circulation immediately. That means many of them show small imperfections right from the start: light scratches, soft strikes, minor flaws, or damage from machinery and handling. So even with over 1 billion dimes produced, finding one in flawless condition becomes much more difficult than you'd expect. That's where collector interest starts to build. For a Roosevelt dime like the one from 2005, collectors are especially interested in two things: condition and strike quality. Let's start with condition. Most circulated dimes from this year are worn down from use. Edges are dull, high points are flattened, and the overall shine has faded. But every now and then, a coin is discovered that looks just as fresh as the day it left the mint. No scratches, no marks, no signs of circulation. Those coins are usually pulled straight from original mint rolls and stored carefully from the start. When a coin like that is submitted to a professional grading service and comes back with a high mint state grade, say MS66 or higher, it suddenly becomes something collectors are willing to pay a premium for. Now, let's talk about strike quality. One of the key details collectors examine on the Roosevelt dime is found on the reverse, specifically on the torch. Around the torch are two bands. In most dimes, especially those with a softer strike, the lines within those bands appear faint or blended together. But when the coin is struck sharply and clearly, those bands are fully separated. This is what's known in the coin collecting world as full bands. Having a coin with full bands means the strike was strong and precise, and that's not common among regular circulation coins. When you combine a high mint state grade with full bands, you end up with a coin that's far more desirable than the average example. So, let's bring it back to the 2005 dime. Because it's a recent coin and not made from silver, many people assume it's not worth collecting. And for the most part, that's true. A typical 2005 Roosevelt dime in worn condition is only worth its face value, 10 cents. Even uncirculated ones, if they don't meet the high standards of collectors, are usually worth only $1 or $2. But then there are the exceptions. A small number of 2005 dimes have been found in remarkable condition, uncirculated, with perfect surfaces, strong details, and full bands on the reverse. These coins stand out immediately to experienced collectors and grading professionals. They are then submitted for certification, and when they receive extremely high grades, like MS67 or MS68, they enter a different category altogether. A coin like that doesn't just appeal to casual collectors. It catches the eye of serious numismatists who are building high-grade date and mint sets. Some are competing for registry sets, collections ranked by condition. In those circles, having the best example of a common coin can be the final piece in a competitive collection. And when only a few coins are known at that top grade, the demand far exceeds the supply. That's where values start to climb. Over the years, a few examples of the 2005 Roosevelt dime in top condition, with strong luster and full bands, have sold for impressive amounts at auction. These aren't sales based on silver content or historical rarity. They're based purely on condition and the scarcity of top-quality examples. And in one case, an exceptional example of the 2005 Roosevelt dime, certified at a top mint state grade with full bands, sold for a price that surprises almost everyone who hears it. This small, modern dime, worth just 10 cents in face value, was sold for $35,000. The next coin in today's lineup is one you've probably seen more than once, maybe even today. It's another dime, simple in appearance, but it holds a surprise most people would never expect. Let's take a closer look at the 1994 Roosevelt dime. This coin was produced at the Denver Mint and carries the small D mark just below the date on the front. It's part of the same design series that's been used since the mid-1940s. Nothing unusual there. The Roosevelt dime has been a regular part of U.S. coinage for decades. In 1994, more than 1 billion of these dimes were made. Specifically at the Denver Mint, the mintage crossed well into the hundreds of millions. That makes the 1994 dime a very common coin on the surface. It was struck for everyday use, meant to circulate, to be spent and saved, to pass through hands without a second thought. And that's what most of them did. But not all coins are created equal, even when they're made in the same year, at the same mint, and from the same materials. Some coins come off the press with more detail. Some escape the usual wear and tear. Some are preserved in ways that most never are. That's where the real difference begins. With the 1994 dime, collectors aren't necessarily chasing rarity in the traditional sense. This isn't a low-mintage coin. It's not silver. It doesn't have a famous air variety that everyone talks about. But it has something else, something that matters just as much in the world of coin collecting: quality. Every coin begins its life under high pressure, struck by steel dies in minting presses running at incredible speed. And sometimes, just sometimes, one of those coins comes out practically perfect. Full details. Clean surfaces. No scratches, no marks, no dullness. Just sharp, bright, untouched metal. Those coins are rare, not because of how many were made, but because of how few have survived in that condition. For the 1994 Roosevelt dime, that's exactly the case. Collectors who specialize in high-grade modern coins are always on the lookout for examples that stand above the rest. These aren't coins found in loose change. They're usually pulled straight from freshly opened mint rolls, protected early, and kept in controlled environments for decades. When submitted for grading, they're examined under magnification, scrutinized for every flaw, every tiny detail. Only the best receive the highest grades. And among those, only a few might display exceptional strike quality, with all design features sharp and complete. For this particular dime, there's one area in particular that matters: the fine horizontal lines wrapped around the torch on the reverse. If those lines appear fully separated and clearly defined, the coin may receive the full bands designation, which instantly increases its appeal to collectors. Still, even full bands alone doesn't make a coin exceptionally valuable. It's the combination of sharp detail, untouched surfaces, and a high mint state grade, MS67, MS68, or above, that truly sets a coin apart. Finding that level of quality takes patience and a bit of luck. Even among coins stored in original mint rolls, only a handful will be free from contact marks or subtle imperfections that affect the final grade. And that's exactly why top condition examples from this year are so closely watched in the hobby. While many 1994 dimes exist in circulated condition, and plenty more in average uncirculated grades, only a tiny number have ever been certified at the very top of the grading scale. These ultra-high-grade coins are incredibly hard to find. Think about it. The coin is small, mass-produced, and intended for circulation. Almost all of them were spent, tossed in jars, handled, and slowly worn down. Even coins that were saved early on often show minor marks just from being stored with other coins. That's why certified, top-condition examples are so valuable. They're simply not easy to come by. And while many people wouldn't give a second look to a 1994 dime, the right one, graded at the highest level, preserved in flawless condition, can be worth far more than anyone would expect. In fact, one such coin did exactly that. It stood out for its condition, for its exceptional surfaces, and for being one of the finest known examples of its kind. And in a collector's sale, that tiny, everyday coin, a 1994 Roosevelt dime, sold for a price that caught everyone's attention. That coin, graded at the top of the scale and carrying the full band's designation, sold for $62,000. Yes, $62,000. For a coin most people never even notice. It's not a common outcome, and most 1994 dimes will never reach anywhere near that value. But it proves one important thing. Even the most ordinary-looking coins can turn out to be extraordinary if they survive in the right condition. So next time you see a Roosevelt dime in your change, especially one with a little D under the year 1994, pause for a second. Look closer. Check the surfaces, the shine, the sharpness of the design. It might just be worth more than you think. And in very rare cases, much, much more. And now we've reached the last coin in today's video, and it's the most surprising one of all. The 1989 Roosevelt dime. It's small, simple, and easy to overlook. At first glance, it doesn't seem like anything special. In fact, it looks just like any other dime you've seen 100 times before. But behind this ordinary appearance is one of the most unexpected and valuable modern dimes ever discovered. Let's take a closer look. The P on the coin tells us it was minted in Philadelphia. That year, the Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of dimes, all meant for everyday use. These coins were struck for circulation, not for collectors, and most of them went straight into people's pockets, cash registers, and bank bags. So, how does a common coin like that end up being the rarest find of the day? The answer lies in one thing: a major minting error. Now, mint errors come in many forms. Some are minor and barely noticeable, while others are dramatic, rare, and highly collectible. Errors can include off-center strikes, double dies, wrong planchets, missing elements, and more. But only a small number of these ever make it out of the mint, and even fewer are preserved well enough to be worth anything significant. This 1989 dime wasn't just any error. It was a dramatic off-center strike, one that pushed the design far enough off its normal position that part of the coin's image was missing. These kinds of errors usually happen when the metal blank, called a planchet, isn't properly seated in the press before the dies strike. When that happens, the result is a coin with part of the design misaligned, sometimes with large blank areas or distorted text. And that's exactly what happened with this coin. What made it even more interesting is that the error was large enough to be clearly visible but still kept enough detail to identify the year and mint mark. That balance is important. If an error is too extreme and you can't tell what it is or where it came from, its value drops. But when a coin is dramatically off-center and still identifiable, it becomes a real standout. There's more. This particular 1989 dime was not only struck with a bold error, it was also kept in incredible condition. Most error coins are tossed aside, damaged during sorting, or heavily handled before anyone realizes they're special. But this one was different. It showed no signs of circulation. No scratches, no dunis, no wear. It was preserved just as it was struck, flawed, but untouched. That's part of what made it so valuable. Condition still matters, even with error coins. A clean, uncirculated error is always more desirable than one that's been banged around in circulation. Collectors who specialize in error coins know just how hard it is to find something like this. Especially from a modern, high-mintage year like 1989. There are millions of 1989 dimes out there, and most of them are exactly the same. But a coin like this, with a dramatic misstrike, sharp detail, and perfect preservation, is an extreme outlier. In fact, it's possible that only one example like this has ever surfaced. That's what drives the value up, not just the error itself, but the combination of factors: rarity, condition, visibility of the date and mint mark, and the overall appeal of the error. These kinds of coins don't show up often. When they do, they tend to grab attention quickly. Error collectors, registry set builders, and even investors look for coins like this to add something truly unique to their collections. This dime eventually made its way into a professional auction, where it was examined, authenticated, and confirmed to be one of the most dramatic and well-preserved Roosevelt dime errors known. And when the final bidding closed, the price it reached shocked a lot of people. That little 10-cent coin, struck over 3 decades ago, with a simple but severe minting error, sold for $68,000. A dime. 10 cents. Sold for $68,000. Not because of what it was meant to be, but because of what went unexpectedly wrong. It's an incredible example of how even modern coins, with high mintages and no silver content, can still hold incredible value when something unusual happens. And while this is an extreme case, it shows that error coins deserve a closer look. Most are minor, but every so often, one breaks the mold. One slips past inspection, escapes into the world, and quietly becomes one of the most valuable coins of its type. So, if you ever come across a coin that doesn't look quite right, something misaligned, partially blank, or just a little off, don't ignore it. Take a closer look. It might just be one of those rare mistakes that's worth far more than anyone expects. Because sometimes, the most valuable finds come from the errors no one was supposed to see. If you enjoyed today's video and learned something new, don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts or any rare coins you've come across. Your support helps us keep creating content like this, and we truly appreciate every one of you who takes the time to watch and interact with our videos. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell icon so you don't miss upcoming episodes. We have more exciting coins and stories coming soon. Every like and comment helps us reach more collectors and coin enthusiasts just like you. Thanks again for spending your time with us. We'll see you in the next one.